The Roman invasion of Macedonia in 168 BCE was a pivotal moment in ancient history, marking the end of the Macedonian kingdom and signaling the rise of Rome as the dominant power in the Mediterranean world. To understand this event, let's dive into the key background, major players, and how the invasion unfolded. Macedonia, once the powerful kingdom of Alexander the Great, had long been a major player in the ancient world. After Alexander's death in 323 BCE, his empire fractured into various successor states, and Macedonia remained one of the most influential. However, by the 2nd century BCE, Macedonia was no longer the world-conquering force it once was. It had been weakened by internal struggles and external pressures. The Romans, on the other hand, were on the rise. After successfully defeating their rivals in Italy and expanding into regions like Spain and North Africa, Rome had its eyes set on controlling the eastern Mediterranean. Macedonia was a key target because of its strategic location and influence over Greece and the surrounding regions. The conflict begins, the Macedonian Wars. The Roman invasion of Macedonia wasn't an isolated event, but part of a broader conflict known as the Macedonian Wars. There were 4 of these wars in total, but the one that directly led to the invasion and downfall of Macedonia was the Third Macedonian War, 171 to 168 BCE. At the heart of this war was Perseus, the last king of Macedonia. Perseus wanted to restore Macedonian power and independence. He formed alliances with various Greek states, hoping to push back against growing Roman influence. The Romans, seeing this as a threat to their dominance in the region, decided to intervene. In 171 BCE, the Romans declared war on Macedonia, and the Third Macedonian War began. For the first few years, the fighting was relatively inconclusive, with both sides winning minor victories. But by 168 BCE, the tide was about to turn in Rome's favor. The key battle, Pydna, 168 BCE, the turning point of the invasion was the Battle of Pydna, fought on June 22, 1568 BCE. This battle was one of the most important in Roman military history, and it effectively sealed Macedonia's fate. The Roman army, led by Lucius Aemilius Paulus, faced off against Perseus and his Macedonian forces. The Romans were well-trained and disciplined, known for their use of the legion, a flexible and highly effective military unit. The Macedonian army, on the other hand, relied on the phalanx, a formation that had been the backbone of their military success since the days of Alexander the Great. While the phalanx had been highly successful in the past, it had its weaknesses. The soldiers, known as phalangites, carried long spears, sarissas, and stood in tightly packed rows. This formation was very powerful when facing enemies head-on, but it was not as maneuverable as the Roman legions. At Pydna, the Romans exploited these weaknesses. As the battle began, the Macedonian phalanx initially pushed back the Roman forces. However, the rough terrain broke up the tight formation of the phalanx, creating gaps. The Roman soldiers, equipped with shorter swords and more flexible formations, were able to slip through these gaps and engage the Macedonians in close combat, where the phalangites were at a disadvantage. The battle quickly turned into a rout. Thousands of Macedonian soldiers were killed or captured, and Perseus fled the battlefield. The defeat was catastrophic for Macedonia, and it marked the end of Macedonian resistance to Rome. The end of the Macedonian kingdom. The Roman victory at Pydna didn't just end the Third Macedonian War, it ended the Macedonian kingdom as an independent state. Perseus was captured shortly after the battle and taken to Rome, where he was paraded in a triumph before being imprisoned for the rest of his life. In the aftermath of the battle, the Romans were determined to ensure that Macedonia would never again pose a threat. They dissolved the Macedonian monarchy and divided the kingdom into 4 separate republics. These republics were heavily supervised by Rome, and they were forbidden from forming alliances with each other or maintaining a large military force. In 148 BCE, just 20 years after the Battle of Pydna, Rome officially annexed Macedonia, turning it into a Roman province. This move not only cemented Roman control over Macedonia, but also over the wider Greek world. The Roman invasion of Macedonia was significant for several reasons. Rome's rise as a Mediterranean power, The conquest of Macedonia marked a major step in Rome's expansion into the eastern Mediterranean. By defeating one of the region's major powers, Rome sent a clear message that it was the dominant force in the area. This laid the groundwork for future Roman conquests, including Greece, Asia Minor, and eventually Egypt. The fall of the Hellenistic kingdoms. With the defeat of Macedonia, the Hellenistic kingdoms that had emerged after Alexander the Great's death began to crumble. Rome would go on to conquer or dominate most of these kingdoms, bringing an end to the Hellenistic era and ushering in a new age of Roman rule. Military lessons. The Battle of Pydna was a key demonstration of the superiority of Roman military tactics. The flexibility and adaptability of the Roman legions proved to be far more effective than the rigid phalanx formation, even though the phalanx had been considered invincible in earlier times. This battle solidified the Roman reputation as a formidable military power. Roman influence in Greece. After the conquest of Macedonia, Rome became heavily involved in the affairs of Greece. Though they allowed many Greek cities to maintain a degree of independence, Rome's presence in the region was now undeniable. Over time, this influence would grow, culminating in the Roman conquest of Greece itself. Legacy of the invasion. The Roman invasion of Macedonia in 168 BCE was not just the end of a kingdom, it was the beginning of a new chapter in ancient history. Rome's victory at Pydna set the stage for the transformation of the Mediterranean world. Macedonia, once the seat of a great empire, became just another province in the expanding Roman Republic. For the Romans, this invasion was a stepping stone in their quest to build an empire that would span 3 continents. For the Macedonians, it was the end of centuries of dominance and the loss of their independence. In many ways, the fall of Macedonia symbolized the end of the old world order. The power of the great Hellenistic kingdoms was fading, and a new superpower, Rome, was rising to take its place. The Roman invasion of Macedonia was a key moment in this transition, shaping the course of history for centuries to come.